When I got up this morning, the sky looked like this. And when I see a sky like that, something primal inside me says, "You're taking the telescope out tonight." I don't have a lot of time to prep for tonight, especially since it may not be clear, so I'm going to spend as little time as possible preparing. I'll be using my very portable 8-inch Dob. Now, the best way I know of to make a quick plan is to use my SkyTools 4 software. And hey, I wrote it, so it'd be kind of weird if I didn't use it, right? Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to use SkyTools for visual to quickly plan a night observations. So I've got it set up for tonight, July 11th, football field. That's where I'm going to be observing my little telescope. And me, the graphic here at the top tells us what's going on tonight. This yellow line is the altitude of the sun. You can see that it sets a little after 8. The teal line here is the altitude of the moon. You can see that it rises a little bit before 2. So this part of the night in here is when we're going to be observing in a dark sky. You can see that the twilight extends clear all out past 9:30 to close to 10 o'clock. So let's have a real quick look at Venus. And Venus, this is its altitude, is the red dashed line. This right here is the 2 air mass line. You normally don't look at things below this line. And you can see it's well below that line before it gets fully dark. But it's Venus, it doesn't really matter. We could look at it before then. But it's not nearly as high in the sky as it was in July. So I looked at it in June. I looked at it in June, and it was pretty nice. Actually, I looked at it in late May, and it was nice. But maybe tonight is not the best. But you know what? I'm not supposed to be planning this by hand. That's the slow way. Let's do this the quick way. So I'm going to choose the nightly observing list generator. Oh, wait, before I do that, let's set when I'm going to quit. So I'm going to set this right slider here to 11:30 p.m. And that tells SkyTools that that's when I want to be done. So that when it does the calculations, it will take that into account. Okay, so we're going to open the nightly observing list generator. And the way we do that is we click on Get Observing Lists, and we select it here at the top. Now, this probably isn't the best name for this thing. In-house, when I was developing it, I called it Quick List. And I'm not really sure why I changed the name. Now it's a big mouthful. It's a little more descriptive, I guess. In a lot of ways, Quick List is more to the point. It does make a list of things to observe quickly. But I've learned over the years that I can't change the name of things once I've let it out, because people get mad at me if I do. So we're stuck with the Nightly Observing List Generator, or the NOLG, sometimes called the NOG. Ooh. Anyhow, here it is, and it knows all of the things that we told the planner. So it knows the night, knows where we're going to be observing. It even knows when I want to be done that night. So I'm just going to select show pieces here. We've got other things, solar system objects, interesting deep sky objects. One cool thing about this is we can run it over and over, and it'll just append objects to the list that we're building, so we can use it to build a list. But I'm just going to click show pieces, and I'm going to make it normal size. What this does is pretty interesting. If with interesting deep sky objects, if you got a long dark night in January, it can produce a lot of objects, a lot of galaxies, things like that. So by setting a size limit, what it'll do is it'll go in and just randomly select things from this long list and say, here you go. So you can run this thing 2 nights in a row and get a different list. But for show pieces, especially in the summer, we're probably going to get pretty much the same list every night. So I'll just keep it at list size at normal. And boom, here we have a list of things to look at. Now you might notice over here that the best time to observe these objects in this column here is, for some of them, it's well after my time that I wanted to quit. But that's okay, because they're still in their best period to observe before then. And that's what matters. So we've got a pretty good list of objects. A couple of globular clusters, Turtle Nebula, that will be really pretty cool. This says I've already logged these things. We've got a comet. We got a comet, so we'll look at that. And double star, cat's eye nebula is always cool. It's through in the ring nebula. And the dumbbell. Those are things that I was going to look at anyhow. I mean, I could find them without aid. I just know how to point the telescope at them. So I was going to look at those guys. You know, old friends are objects that you can just go to and check in with. So this looks like a pretty good list of objects. And what I could do is I could make it generate a plan. So here's the plan. It's telling me at 8:45 p.m. that I should be looking at this double star. And the reason it's chosen a double star at 8:45 p.m. is the sun hasn't set fully. So it's making use of the fact that this is a star that is a double star that can be split in this telescope and will look pretty good in this telescope. And it doesn't matter if it's dark yet. If it felt Venus was really a good object for tonight, it would probably put this in here. In fact, it probably would have started with Venus. So we've got 3 double stars to begin with. 70O, that's a classic. I love that star. It's easily my favorite double star. I wanted to say a few words about my SkyTools software. I've been developing it for more than 25 years, and I use it myself regularly. We keep a low profile when it comes to advertising, but we have a large group of dedicated users around the world. 2 things make SkyTools more powerful than any other software. The databases are very large, and I spent a lot of time building them myself, drawing on my expertise as a professionally trained astronomer to fix catalog errors and remove objects that don't actually exist. The other thing is the magic sauce that makes it go. SkyTools uses a model of contrast in the eyepiece to determine if an object will be visible and assigns a category for how easy it is to see that goes from obvious to challenging. This is calculated for a given location, telescope, eyepiece, and time of night. So a tool like the nightly observing list generator is using that model to decide what objects to recommend, and the model is used throughout the software. It uses a similar algorithm to determine which double stars can be split in your telescope. If we can assign a number to how easy it is to see an object, we can test that number every 5 minutes throughout the night and use that to determine the best time of night to go out and look. Now that may seem like overkill at first, but many objects can be observed in twilight or moonlight, like a double star or a compact planetary nebula, but it isn't always obvious how much twilight or moonlight means you should save it for another night. SkyTools can just straight up do that calculation. This opens a world of possibilities. As you have seen, it can find appropriate things to look at, and it can tell us when it is best to have a look. That way, we avoid having things that are really too low in the sky or wasting time in twilight because they don't look good until it's fully dark. This works for any kind of observing. I use it for binoculars, my 8-inch, and for that special planning that goes into finding things to look at that push the limits of my big dog. It does a great job predicting which telescopic comets are visible to me. Many people don't even try to look at comets in their scopes because being able to detect them is so hit or miss. It's also great for keeping on top of the latest supernovae, like the one recently in M101, and it downloads that info automatically. It drives GoTo's telescopes, but if you want to learn how to find things yourself, it makes these great custom finder charts that makes finding things easy. If you visit something like M27 over and over, before you know it, you don't need any help. You can always just point the scope right at it. I decided to go old school and print out the charts and my list of the things I'm going to be observing tonight. I could have just brought the laptop and displayed the charts on the laptop, but I decided to just go as simple as possible. I'll use my red headlamp to view the charts, and I'll keep an eye patch on my observing eye to keep it dark adapted. That way I can look at the charts without ruining my dark adaptation. That works for the on-screen charts too. You just use night vision on the laptop. Now, I don't really like using a phone for observing because the screen is so small. I want something bigger, either a printed chart or a laptop, because it makes it a lot easier to navigate. And anything you can do to make it easier to find things in the sky is worth doing. Your finding device is another really important thing for making it easy to find things in the sky. Whatever your telescope came with, you probably want to just toss and replace with something that is easy to use. I have a Rigel Quick Finder on this telescope. I want to go over how I use the finder charts. This is the chart that I use for the Turtle Nebula. I'll start with the naked eye view on the left, noting that it's showing the view toward the east-southeast. So that's the direction I'm going to look. I can see it up in Hercules. All I have to do is place the crosshairs near the same spot in the real sky as it appears on the chart, more than halfway between these two stars and up a bit. I have my widest field eyepiece in, and even if I'm not exactly at the right spot, I should be close enough to recognize the stars in the field, which is where the chart on the right comes in. All I really need to do is to look for these two bright stars here, and then check to see if there is another one down here. If it checks out, I have the right field, and I can center the scope at the location of the nebula. Looks like it's pretty small in this eyepiece. Once I have it centered, I'll put it in an eyepiece with more magnification, likely my 8mm Radian. When I'm ready to move on, I'll jot down some notes on the chart itself, and then take that home tomorrow and enter that data into SkyTools so I have a log. Hey, thanks for coming along with me. I'm really looking forward to seeing that Comet 2023 E1 Atlas later tonight, assuming it clears off, because right now it's not looking so great. But I've got my fingers crossed.